Talk about how good a time you've had.
This has been
It was wonderful watching those boys and girls out there get soap all over their faces. Can you hear that?
I can, but we'll have to test if the camera
Talk,
can.
and then we're going to stop it and run it back. And then.
Okay, Grandma, talk. Your voice is a little quieter.
Oh, not
Hers?
really. I'm happy to be here and appreciate all the effort that's been put forth in our behalf. And I hope we can stay around quite a while. I don't want to go anywhere.
Well, we don't want you to.
Okay. Okay, hi. This is our family reunion. We're at Zion's Ponderosa Ranch by Zion's Park. It is June the 8th, right? 2013. It's 9 o'clock at night. We have all of the well, we're missing a few families, but generally we have a vast majority of great-grandchildren and grandchildren here and all of the children. Missing a few spouses. So, there are some questions here that will be asked to Mom and Dad, and it may generate some discussion, but I think we're planning on about an hour, and there are quite a few questions. So, if you have questions, kind of maybe hold them off to the end and we can ask some questions. That may be the best part of it. But if we try and do it as we go along, we may miss some of the questions.
Try to take it seriously.
All right, so here we go. Both Russ and Yvonne want to do this one. It's tell about your birth and where, who was present, under what circumstances. Mom, you're first.
Thank you. I was born July 9th, 1928 in Lehi, Utah, to Alta Mae Bateman Ash and Cecil Lorenzo Ash. What a home to live in. The Lord must have liked me because I had a wonderful life. And I have enjoyed reminiscing by reading, first of all, my mother's history recently when she talked of my birth. And she said that my grandmother attended that birth. And she was a great lady who went, sort of a midwife, who went from one house to another about every week or two and helped. So I felt very privileged to know that she was part of that.
Dad?
I was born in Lehi, Utah on May 23rd, 1928 to Ann Smith Webb and Eden Eugene Webb.
How old were they, Dad?
Pardon?
How old were they when you were born?
Yeah, my dad was 47 and my mother was 43.
Bless them.
Did you have a childhood nickname?
Yes, I did. I was called Cotton for a lot of years.
Cause what?
And why?
Cotton,
Cotton.
because my hair was the color of this. So it was,
I wear this with honor.
and there's another point with my birth, and that is that Yvonne's grandmother that she was just talking about was the midwife who delivered me.
Were you born at home?
Yes. Everybody was born at home in those days, I think.
Okay. You both signed up for this. So describe a very proud moment in your childhood. Mom went first last time. Dad, go ahead.
I think the one that impressed me the most and made me the most excited at the time was that my dad, who was the Lehi watermaster and had to police and control the water turns in the town, would take me with him even at night when he had to go out and check the head gates and so on. And I thought I was a man, even though I was just a few years maybe short of 12. I'm not sure how old I was at the time, but I remember it was a real special opportunity for me.
Mom? Proud moment in your childhood.
Oh, thank you. My father was principal of the grade school, and I loved school, and I loved going But my father would not ever call on me. He was afraid that meant favoritism. So I always thought it was a great moment when he finally would call on me. And I was proud because I was proud of him as a man, a great man. And I'm proud that he was my father because he was such.
Okay. Tell of someone you envied and why. Well,
My best friend was Via Jean Brown. She was 4'11". I was 5'6". Can you imagine the contrast? Can you also imagine why I envied her? I thought all little people were happier than big people like me. But I did find out when I went shopping with her when she grew up, she couldn't even find adult clothes to wear. So I had a hard time finding any at all. No. But, but I do think that as time went by, I realized that 4'11" wasn't the greatest size to be because she grew. She's still alive now at 85, like we are, but she has always just kind of been square and had a hard time getting, so I'm not that hard to get around, but she was delightful because she also knew how to do everything. She could sew, she could embroider, she could do everything like that. And I was limited. That's why I liked her so much.
envy.
Well, I liked her, but I envied her.
How did you spend your Saturdays and Sundays? How do you spend your Saturdays and Sundays, Dad?
How I spent my Saturdays and Sundays?
You sang up.
I spent my Saturdays working on the farm and my Sundays going to church. Every Sunday to every meeting.
Okay, you ready? Saturdays at our house meant clean the house. I mean, I was the only daughter. That meant clean the house, do the dishes, do the floors, get everything gathered up in the laundry way, get our shoes shined, practice the piano for an hour, all those sorts of things. And the day went pretty fast, and we always had cabbage and a hot dog for lunch.
Hey, we remember Grandma's washing machine. Tell them what Grandma's washing machine was. Most of us remember it very well.
I'll say that was it was an old Maytag, and we had a basement and a washboard type thing, and just a bench to put some tubs, a wash tub and a rinse tub. Of course, no dryer, and that lasted us through all our childhood days. But first of all, I had a mother who took care of things very well, but we thought we had it really good because we had this basement to really get everything set out on a line.
It had a ringer, I think.
Had a ringer on it.
Oh, it had a
That's how you
ringer.
got things, most of the water.
Yes. Also had to be
And
careful
the
your
blood out of
arm
your
didn't go
fingers.
in it.
Yeah.
Your arm could go in it.
Okay. What did you want to be when you grew up? Mom, start with you.
Me?
Yeah.
I wanted to be a special ed school teacher. Because my father was a teacher, my brother's a teacher, and I started out, didn't finish, but I admire any of you who teach. And I think that I did inherit from my family the desire to not only to teach, but a feeling of satisfaction in teaching someone and hoping that they have learned and grown from it.
Does everyone know that Grandma was the valedictorian in her class? She was very smart. Oh, it's coming up. Oh, what? Excuse me.
That's right, see what did you want to be when you grew up, Dad?
Pardon?
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I thought I'd be a farmer.
They never grew up.
I lived on a farm, I worked on a farm, I loved the animals, I loved the outdoors, and I loved working with my dad and my brother. And so that's where I thought I was going. It didn't work that way, however.
You ended up in banking, how?
I was going to school at the time and taking monthly banking and finance classes. And one of the opportunities I had was to go to work at Continental Bank as a student employee. And I worked there and I really learned to love it, and that's how I started in the banking business. And I ended up in the banking business when I retired, so it's been good to us.
The Depression was a terrible time where people didn't have any money and lots of banks failed, and there was a lot of poverty and a lot of unemployment, and it was a hard time. What do you remember about the Depression?
Well, the Depression became so severe that in the winter of about 33, they closed the school down in January. And my father being a teacher, that put everyone out of work. I mean, that meant no money. But no one else had any money, by the way, so we weren't out too much.
How old were you?
Except I was 5 years old, almost 6, ready to start school. We had no kindergarten, but we were going to start school. But I couldn't go to kindergarten because we didn't have enough money for the little bit of money that it cost for a registration. And then after my father was told he wouldn't have work, the bishop came to our house and said they wanted to send my father on a mission from February till when he would start school in the fall. My mother started to cry, I remember, and I thought, is this bad? And I found out it was tough, because she said, how will we maintain a home? And I think they told her they would help somewhat with him on his mission. He went to Chicago, and it was a World's Fair at that time, and he left he was gone about 6 months, and I don't think we had a wage at all, but we had a garden that didn't quit. The peas, after they quit growing, or we thought they'd quit growing, the weeds would grow on the top, but my brother, who was 11, he was in charge of the garden. He would lift up the weeds, and there were the peas still growing. Thank you, Lord. That's how we lived from one day to the next almost, because we had to depend on that garden so much. But I certainly gained a testimony through that, because we knew we had a lot of help. And he was home in the fall to go back to school and teach again. And I started first grade.
Yeah. About the Depression?
Depression.
Well, we didn't know there was a depression. We didn't talk about it. We lived on the farm. We raised our own food. We always had food on the table. We had clothes on our back. But we had no money for any entertainment. We couldn't go to a movie. Mom and Dad didn't have enough money to send us to the movie to pay our way. And so we had a lot of, we were entertained in our own home. My sister played the piano, played it very well, and we did a lot of singing at home and things like that for entertainment. But we didn't suffer like a lot of people, because we had the farm to depend on.
Tell about being in a school player program. Dad, this is yours.
Well, when I was in grade school, the first thing we had was at the pilfering pirate hawk.
Yeah.
I was a pilfering pirate hawk. Children trembled at my squawk. Down I swooped on the nearest coop, and I don't remember the rest of it.
We were in the 6th grade at the time. And I didn't write that I'd do that, except that I had to play for that, so I never did get to wear a costume. But after I played for it, a parade came to town, and the feed store up on Main Street wanted to have a float, so they had all the kids that were chickens in this production ride this float and cook spaghetti, and we pretended we were eating worms through the whole. Not pretty.
Dad, you said you wanted to tell about the best pet you ever had.
The what?
The best pet.
The best pets I had was a dog and a horse. I had a dog named Sport and a horse named Blue Boy. And the reason I actually had the horse is because I had to drive the cows from the milk barns in town to the pasture 2 miles down the road. And so I got on the horse in the morning after the cows were milked, and we herded the cows down the road on horseback. I did.
You weren't very old, were you?
Pardon?
You weren't very old, were you?
No, I wasn't. I can't remember exactly how old when it started, but I had the horse, and Sport was a trained cow dog, and he did most of the work. If the cows strayed off in a different direction, he'd go get them on his own. I didn't have to do anything, tell him what to do. And so we had a really good relationship, me and the horse and the dog.
Is there a church activity that you remember as a kid? Mom? A church activity?
We had the nicest church to go to. I felt very fortunate. I remember the little cornerstone on the side said it was built in 1928. Because I was born that year, I thought it was very special. Probably built for me, type thing. It was just through the block from us, and I spent a lot of time there because I was able to practice the organ there. I don't think I've got a question about that piano and organ, so I am going to tell you that we had no piano, and I got to be 8, and I said, Mom, I want to play the piano. And she says, we just don't have a piano. And I said, Grandma has a piano. And she said, well, we'll ask Grandma if you can practice down there. Okay, she lived a mile down there. School was in the middle, and then we lived up this way. It was quite a long way. Grandma said, yes. And so I took piano lessons, and then I didn't take organ lessons, but because we lived through the lot, I used to go over and practice the organ when I must have been starting about 9. A nice new Hammond small electric organ, but very well taken care of, and very well appreciated by our family. And at the end of our church, there was a big mural of the Hill Cumorah, so it was always special. The whole end of it was a lovely thing. So I loved to sit and play the organ. I remember most of all, my father, while I watched.
Dad, did you have a church activity that you want to talk about?
I think the thing that I would talk about there is I would continue on Yvonne's comments. We lived in the same ward. Her bishop was my bishop, and
my father.
And her father. And so I had a very special place in my heart for Yvonne's willingness to serve. She accompanied and played for primary when you were how old?
11.
11 years old. And I was very proud of her. She was a very good friend of mine, even when we were just kids in school. And she was
Right, what about some good advice your father or your mother gave you?
That's something I've always treasured, the fact that my parents were so frugal. Part of the reason being had been the Depression, but I loved the fact that if you bought something my dad says we keep it. This is the shovel we're going to keep for the rest of our lives. So we're going to keep it nice. And by the way, that's what he did. He didn't just run down to the hardware store. And Mother was the same way. Especially with the sewing, Mother was a wonderful sewer. Her father, by the way, was a tailor, so I thought she'd inherited. I didn't inherit it, by the way, but she really did. And
Except the swimming suit.
she would cut up a coat, an old coat, especially an auntie who really had some nice things. She would cut up, unpick this coat, and on the wrong side, make a new coat. And if it was the kind that was reversible, and made a beautiful coat. I mean, a beautiful coat. Maybe even a little hat to go with it. And after she did that, we'd all, if it was mine, we'd go over and stand in front of Daddy, and she'd tell him that it cost her a nickel for the button.
And Kurt and I, Craig, always had matching shirts that were indestructible.
Yes, you did.
Somebody on this day is wearing those shirts. You remember those?
One time she made with Dad.
They were green, weren't they?
Good California wearing the same shirts.
I'm sure he was pleased with that.
That moves us on to tell a favorite summertime or a vacation memory. Tell us about vacations if you had them and what you did in the summer if you didn't. Go ahead.
I'm going to back up just one more because I think we missed the most important part of my childhood. At age 9, I guess at age 8, my father didn't have a job, you see, in the summer. They only taught in the winter, the school. And then he just didn't have anything. We had to find something, or anyway, he bought a piece of property that was an orchard and spent all 2 years almost clearing that land off and over a hill and built us a house. Now that's the reason I didn't want to skip that one, because that was the changing of our lives. If you'd have known how we all lived and pulled a tin bucket or a tin thing out on Saturday night and have a bath, you know, all those sorts of things. But at age 9, after much effort, and it cost him, by the way, $4,000, which went over budget, and built this red brick house. It was wonderful. Our first electric stove, our first refrigerator, our first central heat. We'd all had just, you know, coal stoves. And then, besides that, Dad had a place for an electric stove, but we couldn't afford it, so we had to put the coal stove back in. But I just remember what a difference that made to our whole lives. And then when I'm tying it in with vacations, then I have to tell you we never had any vacations because of that, because we had to pay for the house.
Did you start out with indoor plumbing?
What?
Did you start out with indoor plumbing in that home?
Oh, yes,
That
it
helps,
was
yeah.
very, very nice. Very nice. But didn't have much in it. Mother was a good sewer, and she fixed some curtains, and my bedroom looked cute because she had cute windows, curtains, and things. We thought it was heaven.
Dad, vacation, summer?
The only vacation I remember ever having was the Boy Scouts went to Yellowstone in the back of a big truck with a canvas over it, and all the scouts in the bed of the truck, and the scoutmaster and one of his assistants driving. And we drove all the way to Yellowstone in that back of that truck. We stayed camped out in Yellowstone for a week, and came home and went back to a very normal life of working on the farm and going to school. Summertime, my parents never took a vacation that I remember, and we as a family didn't. But I was the youngest. I don't know what they did before that, but when I was own alone, we never had a vacation.
I also wanted to mention Mutual Delft because that really was the summer activity of our whole area. And that's just like going to camp, girls. It was 3 days at what we called Mutual Delft. This is what the church bought, a wonderful little spot in American Fork Canyon. And then we would go up, the girls would go up for 3 days. And then there were cabins, old wood cabins around it that the boys stayed in too. You can imagine what havoc that was, folks. But it was quite delightful, and I used to be able to go for 3 days for a lot of summers because my mother was president of the Mutual, and she took me when I was a little girl. And the dormitory was just a bunch of mattresses, one next to others, the next maybe 30, and I just, as a little girl, would stand and watch all these girls having heavenly, wonderful time with very humble ways, and I've never had any more fun in my life than that.
Mom, you signed up for this. Did your mother ever make you wear something you didn't like?
Yes, Mother made my swimming suit. I mean, I loved what my mother made, but the swimming suit was not flattering at all. It was bad. And we had a Saratoga out this way. Oh, you know where Saratoga is, don't you? We used to go out to those pools. And we needed a swimsuit, of course. So Mother made this and out of something else, I want you to know. And it looked pretty good off. But on, it was ridiculous.
Dad, you didn't sign up for that one.
I didn't want him to comment on that.
What was your most prized possession as a child? Dad, you go first.
My prized possession was the horse that my dad gave me. It was mine and nobody else's, and I was the only one that rode it. And it really was a mode of transportation that I really enjoyed. And to this day, I love horses. I don't have any, but I certainly wish I did, because if I did, I'd be riding.
You've owned plenty along the way.
We've had a lot of horses.
Yeah, I've had a lot of horses over the years, but not now. Anyway, if I had one now, I'd fall off.
Or couldn't get on them. Mom, you had that same one?
Yes.
Most prized possession?
My very treasured wonderful was a Shirley Temple doll that I got probably when I was 6 years old. And then for every year, for 4 years, I never asked for a doll, but Santa Claus took the doll to a little doll hospital in Salt Lake, redid her hair, painted her face, and if she had a broken arm or whatever, fixed her all up, and then Mother sewed wonderful cute clothes. She would take an old stocking and make a swimsuit. She'd make a little fur jacket for her out of maybe just an old fur piece, that was left, because Mama didn't throw it away. And it was wonderful. And then I'd sit her by me, I remember many a dark evening by the coal stove, because she was so great to me. But something really more important than a doll, of course, was my piano. I have to tell you, I finally did get the piano that was down at grandmother's, and by the way, it was a lovely piano, and the folks were able to buy that piano for me and had it many years. But I tell you, I'm sure I practiced better and loved it more because it was such an effort to get to practice.
Okay, thank you. Did your mom and dad have a favorite remedy for what ailed you? Go ahead, Mom.
Oh, mustard plaster. If you've never had a mustard plaster, you've never lived, but almost died, right?
Explain what it was.
It was just a big, probably a piece of sheet that they rubbed this. It had a mustard and lots of nasty other stuff. But it actually would blister you after it was put on. Don't ask me what it was supposed to do. I decided the best thing, it kept you away from other people that would come near.
Did it smell bad?
Oh, yes,
Dad?
yes.
Did your parents have a favorite?
Yvonne stole my thunder because that's exactly what my mother used too, and I can confirm what she says about it. It smelled and it burned like heck. And I don't think, as far as I know, I don't think it ever did a bit of good.
The alcohol rag on the neck worked just as well too.
Yeah, that did.
Yeah, everybody your Vicks on your
It was
face.
worthless, that didn't work.
I knew that'd bring maybe save
Okay. When was the first time you noticed each other as possible mates, as possible love interests? Where, when, under what circumstances?
I want to hear you say.
Go ahead, Dad.
Well, we have known each other since we were children in grade school. And she was a very pretty little girl. And
Ringlets.
yeah, she had ringlets, and I used to go over there on my bike and take her for a ride. And of course, at that time, we were just friends.
Maybe you were.
Anyway, our story is really special. We've known each other all of our lives, and when we were in high school, I used to sing in a lot of different places. I had opportunities to funerals and weddings, civic clubs, competitions and things like that. And Yvonne accompanied me, played the piano for me, and so we would go, I'd pick her up and take her to wherever the program was, but we were still just friends. And I guess, in all reality, when we were juniors in high school, we started to date, because I was around her all the time, and I finally realized what a choice individual she was, and I decided that she was loved a good time, and we had a lot of fun times together. We really did.
I went through a time when I couldn't stand the sight of him, so.
You want to tell him why?
No, but he's very right. About first grade is when I looked at that cute little boy where these folks always sent him to church in this little suit. Not everybody had a little suit. So right away I was attracted to him.
You were attracted to the suit.
But he's right. The first time I really went out with him was we were doing an operetta when we were juniors called, doesn't matter,
The
Marriage of Nanette. And after the practice, he invited me to go to a late movie. And that's the first time we went together and did a lot of fun things that summer. Went to a lot in the Salt Lake to the old Rainbow Rendezvous and saw Gene Krupa and lots of fun things. He spent a lot of money on some things.
Those,
Thanks.
the thing, Rainbow Rendezvous was the epitome of dance halls in the state of Utah. It was in Salt Lake City. And they brought in all of the big name bands. Gene Krupa, Stan Kenton, even Nat King Cole. You guys probably don't even know who I'm talking about. But and we'd go up there to dance, and and just enjoy the music coming from those professionals. I still love the music of the 40s. This stuff you guys like stinks. No offense.
Okay, so a little chronology here. You were married in August of 47,
Right.
and then I was born in October of 49, so a little more than 2 years later, and then almost 2 years each. We're spaced a little bit differently than that, but by the time I was 12, there were 6 of us. So sometimes you guys have lots of little kids and it's a burden, but we were just all really close together, all 6 of us were. Do you have a purchase that you later regretted?
I do.
What, Dad?
It was a yellow Camaro. And I've got to tell you what, that was a mistake. Because Kurt loved fast cars. And I let him drive it. And Yvonne and I went on vacation. Well, it was a business trip, but I took Yvonne with me. And while we were gone, Kurt took that Camaro down to a shop and had the head shaved, which is to soup it up. And when I got home, I had no knowledge of this, and when I got home, I got in that little car, and I backed out of the driveway and started out, and I put the gas pedal down like I usually do, and that thing jumped out from under me. And I thought, something is wrong here. And I found out later what he had done.
Later as in
What?
10 years later.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Remember that, Dad?
Yeah.
This is what happened.
This was the same thing I hated. The worst thing we ever bought was also the Camaro.
By the way, I thought it was awesome.
I know.
I did too, but I didn't.
I was just so pleased Kurt would let me drive it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't even
until you ran it into a pole.
I don't remember that.
Okay. Let's see, where were we? Oh, what's your favorite candy or snack? Mom, you're down for this one.
Oh, this is, always be my favorite is because on dark wintry nights in Utah, my father popped corn in a big, just in a big bowl, and in an old shaker popper, and also popcorn that he'd grown in the garden. The popcorn looked sort of black. It was sort of a dark gray, blackish look. Just the variety, yummy popcorn. I think the hardest thing I remember was having enough money to buy the little bit of butter or whatever it was that went on the outside of it, you know, to flavor it. But I still love popcorn for that very reason.
And you signed up for this one, Mom. Did you ever have an experience when you knew a principle of the gospel to be true?
Very much so, and I'm sure all of you have felt the same sort of thing when you've had leadership in our church, that you feel a mantle of responsibility, but not only responsibility, but help from the Lord, because it's there. And I will always know that I could never take a job in the church that I felt adequate for, that you'd say, oh, I can't do that. I can't begin to do that. I don't even know how to do some of those things. But once I was given that opportunity, I could somehow do those things I'd never known how to do. Saddest part is, folks, as soon as I didn't have it anymore, I couldn't write those skits. I couldn't do a lot of those things. That's a testimony.
She wrote some really good stuff.
Wait.
I need to comment.
Okay. You don't need permission.
I do, you're the moderator.
Okay.
My experience with that goes back to 1962, when I was, a big surprise to me, was called to be the bishop of a new ward in Tremont, Utah.
Say how old you were.
And
Tell him how old you were.
Tell them how old you were.
34. And I was dumbstruck. I just didn't think that I was worthy of that or capable of that. But I'd been called, and so I accepted that call, and I chose my counselors. And we were a brand new ward. We only had 3 other high priests besides the bishopric. And so it was a struggle to get these young couples and the wives and husbands set up in the positions and callings. And it was amazing how supportive the people were at that time. Some of them would come in and we'd talk to them about an assignment, and they said, "Bishop, I can't do that. I just can't afford to do it. I would have to buy the materials and so on for my classes, and I don't have the money to do it." And we assured them that we would take care of that. But some of those people who were the least, at the time, interested in those callings became some of our most dependable and most successful teachers in our classes. And an experience like that, at that particular time in my life, was a tremendous challenge, but it was a tremendous blessing, and
Thank you.
I think it was special.
I skipped a question that I was very interested in, and when we had asked you about the Depression, the next question is you were actually teenagers during World War II. What are your memories of that time, Mom?
I only have two brothers. This brother's 6 years older, a brother 4 years younger. And during World War II, I was downtown of one evening. It was dark time, I remember, when somebody came by and yelled out a window, said, "You need to go home right now." And I go home, and we were told my oldest brother was missing in action in Germany. He'd only been overseas a short time. He was only on his 5th mission as a bombardier on a B-24 out of Italy, and his plane was shot down over Germany. And of the 11, well, at the time he was missing in action, it took him 3 months to get us any word at all that he was alive or a prisoner or what. But my mother, she knew everything was all right. She said about my father, who I thought was the strong man in our home, he wavered, but she didn't. She said, I know he's all right. It was a hard year, but he came home and had quite an experience, but they were liberated at that time. The German prisoners were liberated, and he spent a year as a prisoner.
And so he was in prisoner of war camp in Germany.
Yes, prisoner of war camp in Germany.
Dad?
My experience with that, I heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor on that Sunday morning. I'd been to Sunday school, and I was over to my cousin's. We were living in the same ward, and I was over at his home. And his grandmother came out of the house and said to us, "The Japanese have just bombed Pearl Harbor." And we were, at that time, I think 13. And it was a shock to start with, but the longer afterwards, we heard all kinds of stories about what the Japanese were doing to their prisoners and so on. And there was that concern that they were winning going down the road. Every place that they attacked, they were winning. And so we really felt like there was a good chance that they would invade the United States on the West Coast. And we lived in fear of that for a couple of years before we started to get control of that situation. And everybody sacrificed during that war. They rationed gas. You couldn't buy tires. A lot of things that were common, normal, and available were no longer available, and we were kids, but we were worried about it and afraid of it.
Did you get to work in the steel plant?
Pardon?
Did you work in the steel plant a little during the war?
Yeah, I did. Of course, everybody of working age and old enough to be in the service were drafted, and they didn't have enough working people to man the jobs at the steel plant, and the steel plant was making steel for the war effort. And so they recruited high school students even. And while I was in high school, I'd go to school, and then I would get on a bus and go down to the steel plant, which was in Orem. That's about 20 miles from where we were living. And I'd go down and work a shift at the steel plant. And then come back the next morning and come back to school. When I got home from school, I'd go to bed and sleep between 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 11:30 at night, and then go back to the
You were only 15 or 16 years old then.
That's right. And that was a war effort, and it was sure fun to have all that money.
It was for a fact.
They paid us.
You were never a soldier.
Pardon?
You were never a soldier.
Never. I graduated from high school in 1946. The war was over in 1945. And so we missed it just by years. Some of the high school kids actually left high school and joined the Army. And so there was a lot of that. But we didn't have many from our high school, but some of the older boys during the mid-1940s, before the war was over, had quit school and gone on to join the armed services.
Okay, that was a question that I went back to childhood on. Now I'm going to go back to the adult thing. Tell a memory that stands out. There's just two questions left. This one and the next one. Tell us a memory that stands out about each of your children.
Oh, Jesus.
A good memory.
Yeah.
As a dangerous.
You've already heard mine about Kurt.
So I'll give you mine about Kurt, because very good.
I loved him.
Kurt turned 19 on an October 25th, sorry. His brother's is 17. On the 25th, he turned 19, went to the Y, and he said nothing about a mission. I mean, we talked mission a lot, but he just said he was going to the Y. And okay, that's fine. And everything Kurt did had to be his idea, so we let him think, do what he needed to do. After Christmas, he came home and he said, I quit school. I quit school. I thought, oh boy, you quit school. He said, because I'm going on a mission. And I thought, oh, that's what we needed with all these other examples. But he needed to be an example to all those other boys. And I'm sure they would tell you that was true. And I know that it was an effort for you.
Well, they were afraid I'd hit him in the face.
Listen, I know it was hard for him sometime, but it was the best thing that ever happened to all of us. And then the other boys were able to go to, and we appreciate him for that. And
Okay.
along with that, I must say about I'm just gonna say one comment about their wives. I always never say anything about the wives, and I love you all so much, but I wanted to say how much I'm gonna say Michelle's now, since I'm talking about Kurt. Michelle and her flowers. Michelle, and growing her gardens and her flowers. I always will remember that, and you better keep doing it forever. It's such a dear thing, and she's let us help sometime. Appreciate that very much.
Okay, Kent?
Kent was my outdoorsman. He loved to fish. He loved to clean the fish when we caught them, which I didn't understand. But he and I have had some great fishing trips together. And we've worked together, and he's special in his own way. And but we feel this way about all of our children. But Kent loved the outdoors, and I love the outdoors, and that's where we really got acquainted.
Okay, I'll do Kent now.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
And not look him in the face, no. Both Kurt and Kent have very good, bright minds. I've appreciated that, and they've utilized that. Kurt's showed a little better than Kent's. It took Kent graduating from high school and going right on to the University of Utah that very summer for him to not even buy the manual, and got a straight A out of it, and he got on the honor roll at the U of U, and nobody was more surprised than the teachers at Bear River High.
I want to add something to that. Leon Kerr was the principal at the high school. Cleon.
Yeah.
And he banked at the bank. And he came down to the bank one day and he said, Russ, he said, I saw in the paper today that Kent his name was on the honor roll at the University of Utah. He said, I could not believe that. I said, neither could I. But he was a good student and a good man.
And I want to say just one other thing about Kent, a more personal thing, besides the fact that he calls me mum. Me mum. Besides that, my favorite thing I think about him is he had this little fat hand and loved to go gather asparagus. And then he'd come by the stove and stand there until you cooked it for him.
And it was good. Nice going.
Okay.
Craig?
Oh, Craig.
Yeah, he did come next.
Okay. Craig has been our homebody, really our homebody, and loved to be home. And proved it to me when he was a senior in high school and announced that he was going to come home for lunch. And it was a delightful time. The same old sandwich, but we had some good old talks, didn't we? It was a delightful personal time. And then he also had a chance to mock Williams, and Farrell, what's her name? What was her?
Loretta.
No, I don't mean Loretta. I mean the type teacher. Thurston.
Oh.
And he mocked them, and we laughed a lot. But it was done in private, So.
He also mocked the high steppers,
Yes.
which was the girls' marching group. He'd parade around the living room.
With straight and tall with his
Same.
backside poking out.
Just joking, Nancy.
Yeah. Hey, my last thought, though, he's been very loving and generous to us. Appreciate him very much.
Yeah, he's a special fellow. They all are.
Okay, that's not all of them.
Okay.
I'll talk about Karen. Where is she? I've never seen anybody that could work harder or play harder than Karen and get to the transition so well from one to the other and look so different in such a short time. That's an art, folks, that have so appreciated. She and I have had to hold up the feminine part of our family. She's been kind of spoiled. Her father spoiled her. We couldn't, the boys couldn't touch her, but I love to do the girl things with her, and you are my best friend.
Well, that's nice. However,
And you,
I'm not,
would you quit pushing this?
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh dear.
Karen, I have to tell you that after Craig, I thought we were going to have boys forever. And so when Yvonne went to the hospital to deliver the baby, in those days we didn't know what sex the baby was. And we didn't know. And one of our good friends was the doctor. And so we got her to the hospital. Yvonne went into labor, and she wasn't very long before the baby was born. And the doctor came out. I was out in the other room. The doctor came out and he said, "Russ, you've got a new baby daughter." And I said, "Well, I'll be damned." And I said it 2 or 3 times. And she's been the light of my life. I know she's a character, but I love her.
Okay, then there's Chris, and he's our sunshine boy. I mean, he literally brought the sunshine to our family. And the rhythm. He's always had the rhythm, clear back to when he was a little boy, a baby in a baby cart. We went to Lagoon once when he was just a little toddler thing, and he's got a real attention for our family by doing the big rhythm to everything that went by, and our family got famous in a hurry because of this baby who had all this rhythm. And he and Kelly were great at doing bimbo with our stereo. They loved to do bimbo. But my favorite comment about Chris, and I thought maybe we were on the right track with him, other than I have to say that he did everything his mother asked him to. And by the way, I asked him to do some terrible.
You did.
We made up these little skits for him, and what were they, Chris?
Henry Gibson.
Huh?
I don't know.
Henry I have a nose.
Henry Gibson with a flower in his hand, and he did that so many times, and because his mother said that. But the biggest thing I've got to say is he said, when we'd ride down to Utah County, probably past your house, down that Redwood Road, he'd say, "Mama, I'll go on mission if I don't have to go past Grandma's." Okay,
Yeah.
you want to talk about
Chris has always been a strength in the home. Even when he went on his mission, I remember Kurt saying that they didn't have to inspire Chris. Chris inspired them. As young as he was a real strong influence on his brothers and his sister, and still is. He's another one of the special boys.
And then there's my beautiful baby boy.
He don't look so beautiful, right?
He was a beautiful baby boy. I think that's what the nurse said when she came out. She said, it's another boy, but it's a beautiful He has, but he's been a delight, very easy to raise, by the way, and always had so many friends at the house. So many friends at the house. But he must not have been perfect because Scott Sandal got barred. Scott Sandal was barred from our house for 1 year for something Kelly did over at their house.
I don't even remember what it was. Yeah, right.
We had to send that little kid home every day, didn't we? Yes.
Karen was pretty nice to his friends.
I was very.
No, she said, go home, Rocky. Get home, Rocky. But I gotta say one last thing, and that's about Kelly and his friend Rocky. Rocky had been such a good friend with him. They were just pals, and I know Kelly wasn't trying to do missionary work when he was the pal to him, but they were just good friends. Till when that little boy got older, he'd get ready for church early because his folks didn't go, and he stood at the door so Kelly was ready, and they went to church together. But the best part of that is we saw Rocky in the temple when we were working in Arizona in the temple, and he treated us like parents, and he said it was because of Kelly that he was now active in the church. Go, good boy.
Dad? Kelly?
Kelly? Kelly is the most level, this is my opinion of him. He is well, and like you, he's our baby. But he's always been a sweetheart. He's always been a kid that was willing to do whatever he was asked to do. He had, like you said, he had a lot of friends. And he was very popular in high school with students. He was a student body president at his high school. He's a young man and has been with a lot of talent and a lot of ability. And he's right there with the rest of them.
And you'll not hear that soon, so you'll be a nice boy.
Last question. You done? I wouldn't want to shortchange Kelly.
Is there anything else you want to say about that? Go. Anybody else want to say anything?
Okay. The last question is, do you have a good piece of advice for us?
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Get the little long still.
You know, we're 85 years old. We've been married 66 years on August 14th. And if I had no idea that this would be the way we'd end up with this large posterity that we have. And as I look around this room and look at the strength and the character and the warmth, the love that exists in our family, I'm almost speechless. It's a dream come true. But I would say to you this, that it's a long, hard road, and that this is a school that we're going to here on this earth. And we live and learn. And it's a challenge that we have, that we need to keep our head on straight. We need to remember our families and put them first in life. There's a statement that has been made by one of the presidents of our church that said, no success, whatever, can compensate for failure in the home. And to me, that's true. And I've been there, and I've had problems in the past, but I've overcome them, and I love my family. I'm so proud of them, and I express my gratitude for their love and affection and respect. And it's been a great trip, and I'm glad we made it this far.
I just really second that, and may you know that I love you, and that the Lord loves you, and that together with your partners in life, enjoy life because it goes by very quickly. And I want to thank you all for the dear people you are to me.
I think that's a good way to end it, unless somebody has a specific question. So, thank you. Glad to get to do that. We love you, Tracy.
And Kelly, you were easygoing.
Anyway, and and then Tammy, she's just the most enthusiastic, wonderful person who never lets us be alone on a holiday, and also has all sorts of wonderful special visual aids for me when I've ever done anything, plus many other things. Thank you. And Roxanne, you bring something ladylike to all of us. And Michelle has helped us out on some pretty tough spots with her nursing knowledge, and also like some of the grand things you make, like her strawberry shortcake, and her popcorn, chocolate. Thank you. Sorry I forgot that.
What about Jimmer?
Okay, well, the girls knew I'd already said it about Jimmer. He cooks a mean steak. He cries easily. And it's so wonderful to go to their house and see that big man in the big chair with that, maybe a baby, one of the babies on his shoulder, and his big hand patting him, because they all love their papa. That's what they call him, Papa. I'm sorry I forgot that.
We won't tell.
Thank
Don't
you.
tell him.
That's good.